Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Deziel and today I'm going to show you how to eliminate the side seam and do a side panel that's going to touch the front and the back. To make today's style, I use my elongated bodice or the dress block, and already I retrace the front block. My elongated bodice has a wider measurement at the hip than at the bust. So when it's time to put my block one next to the other, I'm going to have an overlap to do at the hip level. What I'm going to do first is put my square at the bottom, and I'm going to move it on that bottom line or the hip line until my square touch the underarm point. Then you're going to trace from the underarm point all the way down. Then I'm going to elongate that hip line so I'll be able to place my back bodice. Now I could put my back block so right on the line, and I'm going to slide it until the underarm point touch the front underarm point. Then you could trace all around. Then don't forget to indicate all the pivot. Just to give you an idea, if you are using my elongated block, you should have more or less a centimeter or 3/8 of an inch on each side of the middle line. Now what we're going to do is determine the width of that side panel, the width we want. It's a matter of style. But I suggest maybe 10 or 12 centimeter, maybe 4 or 5 inches at the waist level. The side panel doesn't go over the notch or the across back or across front. Today, to make it a little more simple, I'm going to square from the bottom and go inside at the waist level about 2 inches or 5 centimeter. I'll do that same thing on the back and on the front. Now, since like I told you, it should not go over the across front or across back measure, I'm just going to curve the top part of my style line. I'll do the same thing in the back. Now you could see my side panel, but you could also see doing that I enlarge my waist. You could also see that I have an overlap here at the bottom. That means my hip is now too small. To fix the side panel, I'm going to ask you to trace the waist level. Now you're going to measure from the straight line to the original side seam of the front, and same thing on the back. Usually it should be the same measurement, but just make sure. The measurement that I found is a centimeter or 3/8 of an inch on each side. And before to continue, I'm showing you the block that I use. Here on this elongated block, I have a lot of excess on my waist. It's a semi-fitted. On these block, I had 2.6 centimeter, a little more than an inch in the back, and same thing in the front, 2.6 centimeter or a little over an inch. Now, since I'm going to have an extra seam on this new style, I'm going to be able to adjust a little more. First, on that side panel, I'm going to remove on each side the amount that I found next to the middle line. So I'm going to go in 1 centimeter on each side or 3/8 of an inch. Now to make it balance and have the same shape on both sides of the style line, since I know I have excess on my block, I'm going to make this one a little more fitted by going on that side of the line the same amount, so 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch. And if you don't want to go tighter at the waist, you like the fit as it is, you could always take that measurement, half and half on each side of the dart. You have the choice, or you make it a little tighter because you have an extra seam and you know you had the excess on your block, or you give it by making the dart smaller, half and half on each side, and you put the same measurement on the other side of the line. And whatever you decide, you're going to do it in the front and same thing in the back. You could also go in if you want in the back and put your measurement on the other side of the line. Now maybe you remember I usually say that the further you go from the original position, the shorter the dart has to be and also the narrower you should do your dart. Now if we want to trace that dart for the side panel, you have the level for the original dart. From there you could go down maybe 3 or 3.5, and that's going to be the level of the new dart. You could use the same reference for the back. We're going to retrace the top part of the dart. Same thing in the back. Now if we go down, we still have to redo the overlap that we have at the hip level, because this middle line is going to disappear. So the overlap that we had, the excess of fabric we need here, we have to recreate it on the new style line. Now you see how we did the adjustment right on the new style line. We'll do the opposite here. We'll do the overlap on the new style line. Now I measure here, I have a centimeter overlap on each side of the middle line. That means I'm going to need to add 1 centimeter on the back style line and 1 centimeter on the front style line. I could distribute it. I could put 5 millimeter or 3/16 of an inch to the front piece and the other 5 millimeter or 3/16 of an inch to that side of my side panel. And I will do the same thing in the back with my 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to distribute 5 millimeter or 3/16 I will add to the back piece, and 5 millimeter or 3/16 that I will add to this side of the side panel. Now I'm just going to trace parallel to my hip level a line about 5 centimeter or 2 inches higher. Now I'm going to trace 90 degrees from the bottom on each of my reference, and I'm going to trace these lines until the 5 centimeter or the 2 inches higher. Now you can see I did a dotted line just to make sure there's no confusion with the lines. We're going to first determine the contour line of the front piece. We'll do the same thing with the back piece. So from the armhole, you have a combined line all the way to the pivot, and then you have the line that belongs just to the front piece until the waist. Now we have to finish that line. We have to go connected to the outside line because here at the bottom we had an overlap. So we have to go all the way to the further line. I'm going to use my French curve and complete my line. Now I'll do the same thing with the back. So you have the combined line from the armhole to the pivot. Then you have the side of the dart that is closer to the center, all the way to the waist, and then from the waist, the further reference for the hip. Now the side panel, I'll start with the front style line. Like I said, the line is the same from the underarm point to the pivot. Then from the pivot to the waist, I'm using the side of the dart that is closer to the side seam. And from that point, I'll have to connect with the bottom or hip level, the reference that is the further from the original side seam. This way I create my overlap that I need. Now we'll do the same thing on the back side. So you have the combined line on top all the way to the pivot. Then the side of the dart that is closer to the original side seam. Now at the hip level, the further reference. Now to make sure that there's no confusion, I'm going to cancel. I cannot erase, but I will cancel my side seam details. I could keep the middle line, that's going to be my grain line. Now the other thing that we need is a notch that we need to put exactly at the intersection of the back and the front, so it will match with the underarm seam of the sleeve. Now the last thing before retracing the pieces would be to position 8 notches to make sure we're not going to flip the piece. But also, even if they do look similar, the curve is different in the back and the front, and you don't want to sew it back with the front and front with the back. So you want to make sure you're going to put back the seams together, and to do that we need notch. On the front seam, I'm going to place my notch exactly at the waist level, and in the back I'll put a double notch at the pivot level. Now we're ready to retrace all the pieces. Now I'm going to start with my front. Don't forget to move your plan paper between the tracing of each piece so you have enough paper to add your seam allowance. Now my pattern pieces are done except for this intersection where you assemble the side panel with the front and with the back at the armhole. What we do, same thing for both sides, you're going to elongate the vertical line or vertical style line until it touches the contour of the seam allowance. And we do the same thing for the same line on the bodice. Then from that line at the intersection, you just square out and we'll cut this excess. You must try it, and try it when it's time to assemble so you really appreciate it. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and I see you soon.